Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has met with the visiting Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, pledging stronger bilateral relations with China. When meeting with Wang Yi on Tuesday, Duterte says the Philippines attaches great importance to China's status and influence in the world. He says his country is willing to build stronger relations with China. Duterte says the Philippines highly appreciates the support China extends to his country and the role China plays in his country's nation building, especially China's support to combat terrorism. Wang says China unswervingly supports Philippines' independent foreign policy. Also on Tuesday, Wang Yi met with his Filipino counterpart, Alan Peter Cayetano, pledging China's firm support to the Philippines' independent foreign policy. Chinese and Russian warships held gun-firing exercises in the Baltic Sea on Tuesday as part of the joint C-2017 naval drills.
The ships, which were divided into two tactical groups, fired their secondary guns at floating targets set by the Russian side. The captain of China's missile destroyer Hefei said the two countries' navy fleets were closely coordinated and reached their expected goals. The joint C-2017 drills kicked off on Saturday and will last until July the 28th. The drills aim to carry out joint rescue missions and ensure maritime economic activities. The Chinese fleet consists of one destroyer, one frigate, one supply ship, shipborne helicopters, and marines. The Russian side includes one frigate, fixed-wing aircraft, helicopters, and marines. The Chinese and Russian navies will conduct a variety of joint exercises and attend a parade of St. Petersburg to mark Russia's Navy Day. Australian Foreign Minister Julie Bishop and other dignitaries celebrated the 20th anniversary of the establishment of China's Hong Kong Special Administrative Region in Sydney.
Long may one country, two systems endure, for surely the success of Hong Kong is a success for us all.
The Hong Kong Economic and Trade Office hosted the function Tuesday evening.
It has kept its distinct features and strengths. It has retained its previous social system and way of life, and its laws have remained basically unchanged, with local people enjoying more extensive rights and freedoms.
Speaking about Hong Kong's development, the Australian Foreign Minister noted that one of the Australian government's top priorities is the successful negotiation of a free trade agreement between Australia and Hong Kong SAR.
Hong Kong is our 12th largest trading partner, our 5th largest source of foreign direct investment, and it's a natural advancement of our relationship that we should enter into a free trade agreement given our mutual commitment to the open, liberal trading system.
The government of China's Hong Kong Special Administrative Region has announced a one-stop boundary control arrangement at the cross-border railway station in West Kowloon.
The move allows passengers to go through the customs, immigration, and quarantine or CIQ procedures of both Hong Kong and the Chinese mainland successively at the West Kowloon station in Hong Kong. After the commissioning of the Hong Kong section of the Guangzhou-Shenzhen-Hong Kong Express Rail or XRL link, CIQ officials from the Chinese mainland will work in a designated area at the West Kowloon station.
The cooperation arrangement on co-location will be fully consistent with the basic law.
The 26-kilometer Hong Kong section of the XRL is targeted to be put into operation in the third quarter of next year. Upon commissioning, the XRL will substantially reduce the rail journey time between Hong Kong and various major mainland cities. Let's see some other news in brief. On Tuesday, Chinese swimmers Sun Yang and Xu Jiayu grabbed the spotlight at the 17th FINA World Championships with their respective breakthrough gold medals. Sun claimed his first men's 200 meters freestyle world champion with 1 minute and 44.39 seconds, making a personal breakthrough and a new Asian record. Xu claimed men's 100 meters backstroke champion with 52.44 seconds, beating U.S. Olympic gold medalists Matt Grevers and Ryan Murphy. A Chinese naval fleet has arrived at Piraeus port for a 4-day friendly visit to Greece. Missile destroyer Changchun, missile frigate Jingzhou, and supply vessel Chaohu docked at Greece's largest port, receiving a warm welcome by officials and more than 1,000 Chinese living in the country. Commander of the Chinese Navy fleet expressed confidence that the visit will help reinforce the friendship between the armed forces and people of the two countries. China and Greece are promoting the China-Europe Land-Sea Express line, in which Piraeus is a key port.
Since opening up, China has lifted more than 700 million people out of poverty. This week, the country shared its learning with the 10-country Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN. We went to a forum in Cambodia to have a look.
Hong Tianyun was addressing the opening ceremony of the 11th ASEAN-China Forum on Social Development and Poverty Reduction on Tuesday. Asked Vice Minister of Poverty Alleviation for China State Council, he says poverty reduction is a common goal for human development and a common challenge for China and the ASEAN countries. Hong says that China has always been an active advocate and powerful enabler of the world's poverty reduction cause as the world's largest developing country. He also shared with the forum China's 5-point formula in its achieving large-scale poverty reduction along with rapid economic growth. Since the launch of economic reform nearly 40 years ago, more than 700 million Chinese people have been lifted out of poverty. By the end of 2016, the number of rural poor in China had fallen to 43 million, or just 3% of China's total population. This number is set to fall even more. China has set the goal of lifting 10 million people out of poverty every year from 2016 and utterly eliminating rural poverty by 2020. In addition to combating poverty at home, China has actively helped other developing countries around the world. China has provided nearly $60 billion of assistance to 166 countries over 6 decades.
At least from the numbers, from the statistics, China has been very successful in poverty reduction. At the end of 1970s or early 1980s, China's poverty rate, by the World Bank standard, was more than 70%. Now it's dropped below 5%. We are at the moment, because the poverty rate in China is already low. And talking about 2020, now it's 3 years later, China has been growing now 6-7%, and if they continue to grow at that growth rate, China will have no problem to reach to reduce poverty below 3%, which is the natural rate of poverty.
Sita Sumarit, head of Poverty Eradication and Gender Division at the ASEAN Secretariat, praises China for its methods and achievements in poverty reduction.
China, I think the targeted poverty reduction strategies has worked really well for the country because I think it was very well conceived. China has a very good understanding of the context of the country, about the poorest of the poor, and really made an effort to understand who is the poorest and really target to lift those people out of poverty.
ASEAN has a combined population of approximately 630 million. An estimated 1 of 8 people in ASEAN still lives in poverty.
More news from China. China's state-owned enterprises posted steady profit growth in the first half of the year, official data showed Tuesday.
According to the Ministry of Finance, the total profits of about $208.9 billion were in the January to June period, up 24.3%. Centrally administered SOEs made about $138.4 billion in profit, up 18.5% year-on-year, while locally administered SOEs profited over $69.9 billion, up 37.5% compared with H1 2016. Coal, petroleum, and petrochemical and transport sectors posted strong year-on-year growth, while sectors such as electricity suffered profit falls. The People's Bank of China, China's central bank, said Tuesday it would continue to implement a prudent and neutral monetary policy and step up financial regulation to prevent systemic risks. The central bank will maintain moderate credit growth and basically stable liquidity in order to provide a suitable monetary environment for the supply-side structural reform. Transactions on financial markets will be strictly regulated, while oversight on internet finance will be strengthened, the statement said. The central bank also vows to intensify counter-cyclical adjustment and improve integrated supervision on systematically important financial institutions. China's natural gas consumption rebounded to a two-digit growth in the first half of 2017. China's apparent consumption of natural gas came to 114.6 billion cubic meters in the first half of this year, rising 15.2% year-on-year. China has been promoting efficient, large-scale use of natural gas in sectors including industrial fuel, gas-fired power, and transportation. Natural gas consumption will be brought up to around 10% of the country's energy mix by 2020 and 15% by 2030.
Shanghai recorded another scorching day on Tuesday, with temperatures hitting 40.5 degrees Celsius. The city issued a red alert, the highest level of weather warnings.
It was the third time that the metropolis had seen temperatures over 40 degrees Celsius this month. Shanghai baked in its hottest day for 145 years last Friday, as temperatures soared to 40.9 degrees Celsius. Locals have learned to live with Shanghai's hot summers, but for many newcomers, the heat can come as a shock.
I think Shanghai is very hot. Should be one of the hottest.
These days it's really hot. It's like 40 degrees outside. The sun is just shining bright and I'm out for like 1 or 2 hours, I can get red.
所以我们国这边最高温度是29、30度，但是这边39度、40度，真的很热，很热。
Yeah, this is my first summer in Shanghai, and I think it's very, very, very hot. My hometown weather is hot as well, but we don't have a high humidity compared to Shanghai. That makes you sweat a lot, so that's the big difference with Shanghai.
To survive the heat wave, these newcomers have their own tips.
This summer, I think it's very hard to go out or to travel now. Just stay at my home and being covered. That's most important, actually.
The other day I ate some noodles that were not hot. I don't know how to call them. It's not hot noodles, cold noodles.
I think juices and shakes and coffee, cold coffee, ice creams is what I like best.
While rainy weather is expected to come by next week, helping take an edge off the extreme heat, temperatures are forecast to stay above 30 degrees Celsius for at least the next few weeks.
Dozens of young Chinese Europeans have arrived in Yunnan, southwest China, as part of the latest summer camp exchange program to explore their roots. Take a look.
The Kunming First Middle School's summer camp of root seeking in Yunnan begins on Tuesday. The program was set up by the State Council's Overseas Affairs Office as a way for ethnically Chinese adolescents living abroad to see their homeland. This year, 67 teachers and students from Germany and Spain are attending this camp. In the next 10 days, they will enjoy the beautiful landscape of Yunnan and experience its profound cultural heritage. 13-year-old Luo Yuxiang goes to school in Germany. This is his second time going back to his motherland. Despite living 5,000 miles away, he takes an effort to learn more about his Chinese roots.
I have Chinese lessons in the language school for 3 hours on Friday and read some Chinese books at home. Chinese is our first language, so I think it's very important. Chinese culture is more interesting to me than other cultures. The culture of the different countries in Europe are similar, while the various tribes in Yunnan are fascinating. Yunnan even has its own localism, which I want to listen and maybe learn. I'm also looking forward to seeing its own fashion and Chinese painting.
During the opening ceremony, students from Kunming First Middle School played traditional instruments, such as the bao and cucurbit flute for the overseas guests. The school has also set up a special program, condensing thousands of years of Chinese culture into just a few days.
In order to give the 67 students and teachers a memorable root-seeking experience, we have arranged our best teachers for them. They will teach the students about Chinese traditions such as Kung Fu, folk dance, Beijing opera, and kite making. We hope these lessons and activities can give the children a beautiful memory.
The camp will last for 12 days and end on August the 4th. Besides attending cultural lessons, students will also be exploring wider Yunnan province, visiting museums, historic spots, and scenic areas.
The U.S. population today is roughly 321 million. Over 500 languages are spoken by U.S. citizens, with English spoken by 80% and Spanish 12.4%. But in recent years, another language is on the rise. A 2016 report by the Confucius Institute headquarters showed some 400,000 Americans are learning Mandarin.
The China Institute in the U.S. has witnessed the rise of Mandarin. Founded in 1926 in New York, the China Institute is the first and oldest school of Chinese studies in the U.S. Since 1944, the Institute has offered classes and programs in Chinese language, history, literature, and culture. In its 80 years of history, it has taught thousands of students, both children and adults, to speak, read, and write Chinese. Among them is Aisling McCaffrey, who has been learning Mandarin for several years.
我叫艾舍玲，我是加拿大人，可是我现在住在纽约城市，然后我住了在北京1年，我在人民大学6岁了，然后我回加拿大的时候想中国很多，所以我去过上海，在上海我住了3年多。
Aisling began to learn Mandarin in her freshman year at Carleton University in Ottawa, Canada. It was part of her requirements to take a foreign language, and Mandarin seemed to beat other options.
Well, as I said, I've studied French, and I've also studied Italian and Spanish in high school. My favorite part about Chinese is that it's more straightforward than some other languages. There's no verb conjugations, and there's no... the time is really easy to express sometimes. It's more difficult in other parts of the grammar, but I just found it to be very logical.
As Aisling grew up in a multinational community, her mother and sister also have an interest in Mandarin.
My sister used to live in Kaohsiung in Taiwan. She was a little bit inspirational for me to go to China. Because she did that before I went to university. My mother, though, has also taken it upon herself to learn some Mandarin because she had 2 children living in places where they speak Mandarin. She actually learned from some of her colleagues at work.
For Patrick Gunn, family is a motivation to learn Chinese. Patrick and his wife adopted a girl from Guangxi, China in 2006. Hoping knowing Chinese could help bring him closer to his daughter. Patrick enrolled on a Mandarin program at the China Institute in New York.
So I'm learning Chinese because I'm very interested in the Chinese culture. My family adopted our daughter from China, and she has been raised with the language, going to a bilingual school. I like to be able to know more about the culture, more about the language. It's hard for me to communicate in the language with her, particularly because her language skills have gotten very good, and she makes fun of me when I try to pronounce things in Chinese and tells me that I'm saying nothing. But I would like to be able to communicate a little bit better. We're making a trip in about 3 weeks. We're going to go back and visit some cities in China, and I'd like to be able to communicate with some people along the way.
Elementary school teacher Mary Hoffman is also attending the program. Working and living in Brooklyn's international community, she says the Chinese population has been on the rise for the past 10 to 15 years.
But there are so many Chinese students now, and to overhear the conversations on the subway and just wonder, when I can pick out even one word, like I know the word peño, I think is friend. If I can pick that, when I have a conversation with a parent, there's always has to be an interpreter present. But if I can pick out one word in what the interpreter is saying, I just feel like, oh, wow, I understood that,
Mary started out by gathering words and phrases from conversations with Chinese parents and neighbors, as well as from Chinese TV shows. but she got stuck before long.
I think it's going to be hard because I think the tones are very difficult for Americans. And so I'm sure it will take, like I studied Spanish because I used to work in a Spanish neighborhood, and I can carry on a basic conversation with a parent now about their child. I'm sure it's going to take much longer in Chinese just because of the tonal.
But Mary hopes that a program will help her find a systematic approach to learning Chinese, just like she did with other languages.
I also I happen to work with children who are deaf and hard of hearing, so I took sign language classes. And one of my teachers her father was from China. And she said that the grammar of sign language is actually close to the grammar of Chinese, because in sign language, you don't mark the verb to show past tense. You put in, like if I was going to say today, I went, or if I was going to say yesterday, I went. You put in a different marker. And apparently, it's my understanding that Chinese also you don't change the verb form, you put in another marker to indicate time. So I thought that was really interesting. So I really just love languages, and I'm going to try to get a feel for this.
云天无际，承载梦想。中国南方航空是中国运输飞机最多、航线网络最发达、年客运量最大的航空公司。亚洲第一，全球第三，是南航缔造的业界奇迹。 蓝天壮志情，云海谱华章。
Hi, this is Little Chinese Channel, 小小中文 Lesson 41. If basic characters are like people, then radicals are like uniforms. When a basic character is matched with a different radical, we can make different characters. Basic characters and radicals are all building blocks. In this lesson, we will be studying these 5 radicals. For the first radical, we use a stroke that looks like a 3 and a long downstroke to the right. This radical is called 见字底. 见字底, 见字底, 见字底 comes from the character 见, which means build. Here are some examples of what 见字底 can make. For the next radical, we use a downstroke to the left and a vertical stroke. This radical is called 单人旁, 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 comes from the character 人, which means people. 单人旁 is often at the left of a character. 单人旁 is the building block of these characters. For the third radical, we use a dot and a stroke like this. This radical is called 言字旁, 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 言字旁. Comes from the character 言, which means talk. 言字旁 is often at the left of a character. Here are some examples of what 言字旁 is a building block of. For the next radical, we use a stroke like this that looks like a 3 and a vertical stroke. This radical is called 双耳旁.
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 双耳旁 is transformed from 单耳旁. Mostly at the left or the right side of a character. 双耳旁 is a building block of these characters. For the last radical, we use a horizontal stroke and 2 vertical strokes. This radical is called 草字头.
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 草字头
comes from the character 草, which means grass. Imagine that these 2 vertical strokes are 2 pieces of grass rising out of the ground. This radical is often at the top of a character. Here are some examples of what 草字头 can make. Okay, let's write. Remember when you're writing to follow the stroke sequence. "见字底 单人旁 言字旁 双耳旁 草字头." Bye-bye, the lesson is done.